Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 10th edition of Stories of Service, ordinary people who do extraordinary work. And I am the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And today, as we always do, I have a very amazing and special guest. I have Adam Cole. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Adam. Some of you may have already seen it on social media, but for those of you who are listening to the audio cast later on, you'll have a little bit of backstory about him. So Adam is the founder and executive director of Join the Journey. He serves in a volunteer capacity in this role in his off-duty time from active service in the United States Navy. He formed Join the Journey after deploying as part of the U.S. military relief to assist in recovery following Haiti's 2010 earthquake. Join the Journey, they provide small loans equivalent to $200 and business coaching to give a boost for female business owners in Africa. He is deployed around the world. He served in the Navy for 17 years. And throughout that journey, he's been to Japan, Italy, Arabian Gulf, and he's currently stationed in Arlington, Virginia, where the organization is now based. Not only that, but he's an experienced public affairs officer, communicating first at the tactician level and then transitioning to public affairs management and strategic communications. He served in a brief capacity in the U.S. Navy surface warfare community. I did as well, developing leadership experience and understanding of mission planning. His past assignments include operational jobs with challenging and regional dynamics, such as aboard a carrier deployed to the Arabian Gulf, at the Navy headquarters in the Mediterranean, at the height of Russian aggression in Crimea, an ongoing refugee crisis, and most recently in Japan amid ongoing regional tensions. He's deeply committed to providing Americans information and a sense of connection to sailors, airmen, soldiers, and Marines who serve to ensure freedom and democracy. And we'll also be talking about how his nonprofit, Join the Journey, they have an upcoming benefit coming up called Renewal. That'll be August 19th, featuring Jason Gray. And we'll have a link in the show notes for you guys to get more information. So welcome, Adam.
Yeah, thanks. Really glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is my first in-person broadcast here at the home base. I know you guys saw me do a few of these in El Salvador. So hopefully as time goes by, I'm going to have a big decked out studio one day and continue to have these amazing conversations. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was, what inspired you to live a life of service and join the military in the first place?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think for me, joining the military was in some ways really practical. I think we all hit those moments. Maybe not all of us, but for me personally, I just kind of hit a little bit of a rock bottom.
Right.
I had gotten out of college and didn't pursue my degree. Instead, tried to see the world and live a life of extravagance, so to speak. Just went down in Miami and truth be told, tried to be a DJ.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it ended up kind of being a bus boy in the Nikki Beach Club.
Oh, gosh.
But that of course, didn't last very long and kind of fell in my face and kind of trudged my way back home to Denver, Colorado. And there just tried to restart my life, but something felt missing, especially even in that short time. I was only 24 or 23 at the time. Felt like the entire world had moved forward. You see friends that got their first jobs and oh my gosh, they're working downtown or they're in this state. Life is so great. They start to feel this emptiness, and it was hard to recover from that. Though obviously now I can say my whole life was ahead of me.
Right.
But then, I just wanted something to immediately have a role in making impact. And for me, at that moment, it was service to the military. I was really said, I'll do anything.
Wow.
Raise my right hand.
Wow.
And coming in as enlisted, it's easy. It's nominally easy to join, where as long as you're willing, they'll take it. They took me, so it provided me a very quick avenue to go from this kind of dark place, kind of this uncertainty of where life was, to okay, I at least have some purpose, and I have a path to help, as they say, defend freedom and democracy. Just one other tidbit there is that, I joined in 2004. And so in that time, obviously, Iraq war had just started, the Afghanistan war had been going on for some time. I wasn't like, hey, put me in, I'm ready to go. But, I did sense, that spirit that, hey, it's needed. This type of service is needed. And so
Wow.
I joined
That's
up.
amazing. Oh my gosh. So many things you said resonated with me. And yes, Roderick, we did forget the Guardians there. So yes, that's a space. Was that Space Force, the Guardians? Yes.
Yeah,
But so we're giving them a shout out now.
Oh.
But as far as what you just said, what really just spoke to my heart. Number one, you said you were a DJ, and you're not the only PAO that's been a DJ. My friend Colonel Ann Navi, she also had some time as a DJ, so she was mentioning that one day, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting to hear all the jobs that we do, and besides serving in the military. And then the other thing that you said is a lot of times when people serve, they're coming at it at a place where they felt at rock bottom and they didn't have anywhere else to go. And sometimes I feel like when life gives us those really stressful, challenging, testing times, that's when we step up to the plate and do something amazing, or we get out of our comfort zone. And it sounds like that's kind of what the military did for you. Would you say that?
Yeah, I really would. And I guess when you're at rock bottom, there's nothing to lose.
Right. You're willing to take some risks sometimes, just to kind of pull yourself out of that. And that's sort of the resilience of the human spirit. And what our podcast is all about is how people who, have overcome tough things, but, by giving back and being of service. So you enlisted, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. What was your, we call it rating, your job in the Navy as an enlisted person. What was your rating?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, I had a degree in journalism from the University of Colorado. So, again, I was willing to do anything.
Right.
But when I got to the rating classifier, I think that's somewhat of the name, but, they looked at my scores, they looked at my degree, and they were like, well, do you want to be first they asked me if I wanted to be a sonar technician or something like that.
Right.
And, obviously, again, I'm willing to do whatever you guys want me to do. But I said, well, I had done a little bit of research, and I said, well, do you have journalism? Kind of one of those, like,
oh, wow.
please for something. And of course, the, lady was just made a couple calls, because I think you have to have a seat at a school, a rating school,
sure,
to be able to take it on a certain rate. So I guess they made a couple calls, and I said, hey, you're in luck, kid.
Wow.
Kind of thing. Now, for those that don't know too much about that field in the military, it's actually kind of a small field. I mean, you think about it, why do we need photographers and writers? We need people handling ordnance and
right.
So,
driving warships.
Right.
Yes.
So obviously it's not a big pool, but it's an important pool of people that have that capability. So I did get lucky, and the journey kind of began for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's a lot of people who sometimes I don't think know at that young of an age where their calling is. And it's neat that you at least knew enough to get that kind of a degree and then start your Navy journey on that path. And so you said was that when we still had the JOs? You were a JO?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was before the Navy merged all of our ratings in the communications fields. So you were a journalist, and then from there you must have got your commission, and that's what happened. You put in for a commissioning program after serving in the Navy enlisted.
Exactly. And for me, and there's certainly a lot of ways to become an officer in the military. For me, thankfully I had a degree coming in, so there were a couple paths based on that, but it still became are you qualified? Are you a leader? Do we want you to serve at a higher level for our Navy? For me, I just sensed something that I wanted to do more. At least getting in the door was, okay, I'm not at rock bottom anymore.
Yes.
And then once I was in the door, a switch really turned on for me, and just wanting to make impact daily. And I really, just to rewind a little bit, started to grow or find faith right before, almost right before I joined the military.
So you didn't grow up in a home with faith, or you didn't go to church as a child?
No, and obviously, making some missteps in life, you can admit that I wasn't guided by faith. Let's say that when I made my missteps. In fact, I had grown up in a Jewish home where religion was more cultural. Certainly, there were elements of religion. We observed certain holidays and went and we got our mitzvah and all that stuff, but there was something missing of a faith-based component of what guides sort of your soul, so to speak, to do right. And for me, that was the missing thing, and mostly because, and not to get too, not like I'm preaching here, but I think what was missing for me growing up that way was, I just didn't have a connection to God. So you don't have that connection essentially to a higher power. That you're almost you're rebellious. You're kind of a rebellious son, and you're like, I don't belong to you.
And you think you're just going at it alone. I know that for myself, because faith is a big part of my life as well. And I know that when I didn't have faith and hope and a belief in something higher than myself, I just felt like I was just doing everything by myself. It was me against the world. And I lived in that headspace for a lot of years. And it did not serve me well at all. So I can see why that was something that was so important to you to find.
Yeah. And so it's kind of an interesting narrative now, but I was in my kind of reset moment. I was working in a diner of all things, because that was my work experience, obviously, before the Navy.
Right.
Was waiting tables. Hey, get yourself a job, kid.
Sure.
So just waiting tables, and someone who was at the table gave me an invite to a local church.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like written down the address and just like slid it over me, and I took the invite. I think sometimes when you're in those moments, again, rock bottom, you're like, I'll do it. But for me, I experienced what obviously in the Christian faith is sort of a Jesus, and sort of by going to church, feeling a little bit different religion than I had grown up with, that was more connected to something that was more driven by, not just you can't do right, or can't do wrong,
punishment,
but driven by living to kind of be with God, this higher power, kind of. So all the darkness that I had been experiencing kind of filled with light, and kind of take it forward. Just right after that moment of going to his church, the recruiter's like, hey, your shipping date moved up. And so off I went. But, so really what was going on is I had experienced something almost, really just like one of those events in life. You're like, oh my God, my life changed.
Right.
And then you're off to boot camp. And then so through that is like so many changes that then I was becoming a new person. And then, I rededicated to doing so much of things that I had been rebelling against. So it was a little bit of a natural evolution to kind of want to take my life somewhere, take my career somewhere, serve others while I was in the military. That through that, just a natural evolution that, my superiors had seen something in me.
Sure.
They were like, okay. And it was also an inward desire I want to do more than I'm already doing. And it kind of led to the commission.
Wow. That's amazing. It really goes to show that when you're exposed to the right people and the message that you need to hear at the right time, if you're able and you're willing and you're humble enough to accept it into your life, it can just have such a deep impact, because it sounds like your whole trajectory of your life kind of changed from that point forward and then guided you into where you are today. And so you got your commission and you're doing your time as a junior officer, and you got married, you have a family.
Yeah.
And so there's that as well. What got you down the path of, okay, I'm doing all this amazing service in the military. I would only imagine that you're active with your church. What got you to go, okay, now I want to start a nonprofit? I mean, what got you down that road to think, okay, this is something I can take on, and how? I know there was you went to Haiti, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, and it's an interesting again evolution of just everything. Where as you said, serving as a junior officer. So if anyone has been in the military or knows, it's kind of like you're almost a baby military person all over again. So even though I'd been in 3.5 years prior to that, I was kind of okay, go figure this out. And for me, I had chosen a commission path that was outside of my field of specialty, which was basically I took a commission path to be a surface warfare officer. So everything was new. And it was humbling. It was really humbling because it was, I'd never been exposed to this. I have a college degree, I've been in the military, but I don't get what they're trying to tell me.
Sure.
And in some ways, I was having a little bit of that rebellious spirit going all over again. Like, I don't want to get this, I don't want to follow this path. It's not who I am. But I think my maturity in that moment, at least, was like, suck it up, learn, grow. So all that said, I'm on the ship, USS Normandy. Kind of had been there for almost a year at that point, almost a year and a half. Got married, learning the ropes, really just doing ship life, and taking the ship. We actually put it in what's called the yards, where they rip it apart and then bring it back to life.
Right.
We had done all that, and we were just kind of prepping for kind of deployment. And all of a sudden, in January 10th, 2010, just this earthquake of huge magnitude just crippled Haiti, and reports were about 1 million people displaced almost in an instant. And you're watching it on TV, you're just like, wow, this is really intense. This is heartbreaking, but yet you go to sleep. What are you going to do about it? And then at midnight, I just get a knock on the window. We're going. We've been called to go deploy.
Wow.
And we went. We were part
of a knock on the window of your house?
Well, this is my junior officer buddy.
Oh, wow.
Waking me up because I had been answering my phone.
Wow.
He's like, bro, we've been recalled. We're deploying in 12 hours.
Oh my God.
We gotta go Haiti.
Yeah, we gotta go.
And so, that's the military life, right? And obviously, my wife, we had been married at this point for about 6 months. And, she, so, we're like, I gotta go. But
yeah.
You got everything here. You got the fort, and not knowing what was going to happen, obviously, so we just got on the ship. And this is where I think military is a special field where you just do what you're trying to do. Let's get the ship underway. Let's get the charts out. Let's figure out where Haiti is. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that kind of is a superficial way, but I mean like, okay, what's the navigation path? Like, where do we see shoal water? Like, kind of visualize it, create a nav plan to get down there. Like all the stuff that's like we had to plan for that.
Wow.
And we picked up our helo detachment out of Jacksonville. And then we were on station almost 3 days later, and then we spent a good month out there.
What kind of a ship was it? Like how big?
Cruiser.
Okay.
So small ship, not really a relief platform, but we went mostly because we had air deck capability to do some airlift mobility since the roads were all decimated there. We also had some what they call air defense capability since the tarmac there was completely ripped up, so we were at least able to provide some like eyes on in the sky in relay and kind of do some traffic control supporting the Air Force, which was kind of unique. And through that, we also kind of developed our own mission. It's kind of interesting how that evolved. We got, as we went down to Jacksonville to pick up the helo deck, we got all these boxes of like meals, like ready to eat meals, not the same kind as MREs, but they're more like protein and like kind of this interesting mix of sorts that they give to people mostly in starving countries as like, hey, here's immediate food relief, like eat this and you won't die, any type of stuff. And we just got boxes and boxes of it. So we kind of came up with our own mission where we deployed our ribs, came up to these towns, had no comms with them obviously beforehand, there's no coordination. Like you just come up to the town and you kind of like, hey, we're friendly. We've got food, like.
Oh my God.
And try to find the English speaking person. We have our VBS team kind of leading the way because there was a little bit of security, like make sure no one was like shooting at us. And then once we identified kind of leaders who could speak English, hey, organize everyone, we'd deliver the food. So I got to go on a couple of those, and that really changed me, just to see her so up close. I mean, that's the way I describe it now, is that, I was just like, why do I have something in life that's so privileged, and here's these people on these shores that have nothing. And my heart was broken. I guess I really just committed to doing something about it. I was just like, I think in life, and we already kind of discussed, there's so many of those moments like, okay, I'm gonna just join the military.
Right.
For me in that moment, it was like, all right, I'm gonna start a nonprofit. I'm gonna help them. Now,
is that when the thought in your mind was like, I'm gonna do something more based on what I'm seeing here? Is that sort of
that's
sort of the seed was planted at that point?
Well, for me, actually, I had kind of already put the pieces together to start a nonprofit, mostly because, I was kind of putting it together in my military experience. I had done a junior petty officer association. I started one of those up, and I had set the bylaws, and we had organized people, and we would go to orphanages. But then when I left, this was in Japan, my first duty station. It was like I had to leave it behind.
Sure.
And I was like, that just didn't feel right. Not that I had a lot of pride in like, that's mine.
Right.
I want to bring it with me. You guys can't use it anymore. But I just really felt something that I can't keep doing this. I can't keep starting something and then leaving it to someone else. So I already started to think like, let's do this. Let's just do a nonprofit. How hard is it? Now, I'd done the research, figure out the bylaws thing, like asked a few friends, and then Haiti happened. It just became clear, okay, that's our purpose. Well, I mean, it wasn't like totally clear. It was like, we're going to figure it out. Let's go. And that's where really the journey began, and just to take it forward for you and everyone else a little bit. So after our deployment ended, I went back on my own under kind of the banner of this nonprofit, that kind of just fledgling nonprofit, and raised some money. I just wrote some letters, kind of in the Christian faith. We call it a missions trip.
Mm-hmm.
You just write letters and say, "Can you support me?"
Really? Okay.
And so for the Christian faith, it's somewhat normalized to get us trained. And this is obviously before, email really took over. But even now, when you get a letter from someone asking for some type of thing, it's personal.
Right.
And so I sent out 25 letters.
To like corporations?
No, these are friends. These are people.
Wow. To say I'm going on this mission.
Can you support me to pay for my plane ticket? Because obviously I was answering, but my wife, I probably could have paid for it. My wife was like, hell no.
Right.
Like, I'm not letting you waste our personal money to go to this foreign country. So obviously it also started this important, church and state kind of thing in our family, which is like,
yeah.
We have to dedicate to family.
Certain family. Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do this nonprofit and this helping the world thing, you got to fund it on your own.
You got to fund it on your own. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, challenge accepted. But it wasn't like that. It was like, oh crap. Well, let me figure out how to do that. And the only way I knew was how they do it in the church, where they write these letters.
And you would just handwrite a letter.
Well, what I did is I wrote a letter that was, I wrote it and then I printed it, but I signed it.
Right. But still,
and then put it in the mail with a return envelope.
Mm-hmm.
And so, law of averages, I got like 4 or 5 back, but I raised a total of like $600.
That's awesome.
That was just enough for the plane ticket.
Right.
And then away we go. I bought it, and then even before, this is where the story is interesting. I guess I don't know if it's interesting.
Interesting.
Is that my church group?
I'm sure our audience does.
My church groups gave me like $100 cash right as I left.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, and the church leader just literally like put it in my hand type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's an envelope. go do great things. So fast forward of it is that, so I get down to Haiti.
By yourself?
Yeah, but I had people down there. I worked with a local missions group that I was like, hey, I want to help you guys. I want to volunteer.
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily, hey, I've got a nonprofit, like, come host me. It was more like, I just want to be Adam here for a sec. Now, granted, the organization helped pay for me to get down there, but I wasn't like, it's hard to go into a country and be like, okay, everyone, we're going to do, everyone knew that I was going down there to link with this group and just be what they call salt and light. Just go out there and just be meaningful to the Haitian people. They were rebuilding, they were hammering and putting up houses.
Right.
Wow. It was kind of like Habitat for Humanity style. So I volunteered with them, and as part of that trip, I said, hey, well, take me over there. And if anyone has ever seen some of the footage during that time, there was tent villages, as far as the eye could see. So all these, as I mentioned before, 1 million people displaced. And so they had all these temporary sort of tarp and tents as the only way these people had means of shelter, mostly given by nonprofits on the ground. So I had noticed one. I said, well, hey, can we go visit that one? And so I was with kind of the interns, so they were like, okay, let's do this. And we took our translator with us, and so we went into the village. We just kind of like looked around, and what we ended up doing with the $100 cash I had, we met the village leader. And it takes everything forward because the same way that we had done it during the military league operation, we did it the same way here. Like meet the leader, kind of be like, hey, can you organize people? And I went out and bought $100 worth of food. There was rice, beans. Sat all the kids down in the special school, and we just distributed everything. And I'm not trying to paint that picture to be like, hey, I'm a hero, but just to say how everything kind of came forward in a unique, kind of almost like really God ordained way. And then through that, after that experience, in delivering food, seeing people help, seeing the kids full of joy in that moment, seeing the leaders knowing that they could provide for their people that were in need, we kind of struck a bargain, so to speak. Like, hey, I need, in some ways, there is a little bit of selfishness. Like, I need to help someone here. Mm-hmm. Can you be my person?
Right.
But that's what I mean about the bargain. It's like more of a partnership. We're like, hey, I know you guys are in need. Can we help you guys? Would you accept the help if we give to you? Of course they're like, yeah, we've got no one else.
Right.
So I was like, all right, let me get your phone number. I don't know how we're gonna do it. We'll figure it out. And then I got back to America, obviously. I got back to military life, but had the guy's phone number. Someone reached out to me on Facebook, and then just started coordinating, get some surrogates on the ground to go visit this camp. And Haitians that wanted to help their own country, and we just worked through them to keep visiting this place. Started to raise more funds, and so it just became kind of our style of delivering food, helping them with educational supplies. Wow. As different Christian missionary groups started to go down there, figure out how to partner with them, and it kind of snowballed from there.
How did you know who to trust? I mean, this is a country like all the way around the world, and it would just seem so hard to know who to partner with. And then how did you understand how this was going to operate when you're doing so much of this remotely?
Yeah, it was tough, and we made some mistakes along the way. I think you just have a little bit of a blind trust in some ways. It's kind of like any trust building event.
Right.
You're like, hey, go visit the town and report back and take some pictures. Now, if they do that, you're like, okay, this dude's serious.
Right.
And then you just slowly but surely, okay, I'm going to give you $200, buy some food, and I want pictures that you distribute. And I want you to give me some level of accountability, that you've done it. So that's just how we operated. Obviously there's always room for corruption and sort of, hey, I didn't use all of this as was intended, but I think the spirit of it was always met, where we were able to visibly see distribution of aid, and then I think what it builds is the trust is mutual, because I think as people on the other side, our human nature, they want to help out just as much as sometimes we do. Even though we're here in America, like, okay, we're just gonna wire your phones and go forth and do great things. But I think for them on the other side, they find so much meaning in being able to help their own people. So I think you recognize that as they build that continuity of their own self of identity, that builds an incredible bond that that they're going to do good.
Wow. And what I think is so great about your nonprofit is it's a lot of this is not just giving food either. You do your loans are sort of the primary way in which you support. And can you tell our audience a little bit about how the loans work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and just to take it forward. So, we started with food delivery, and to put it in simple terms, not like Uber Eats, but I think food delivery. I mean, more food distribution. But what we realized very early on is that you feed a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So very early on, we really tried to brainstorm and research and tried to see what other practitioners were doing in terms of this idea of development. Where you move from aid to development. It's sort of this, magic equation in the development world. And not everyone has the perfect, equation. Some people are like, well, if you give more education or you give this and we start a farm, everything's going to be beautiful. Unfortunately, especially in places like Haiti, where sometimes nothing works as planned, you just have to find your own road that will succeed. And for us, we chose the microloans mostly because of the two things. One is we wanted to increase individual agency. We found that when we tried to get people into groups, like, well, that guy was dominant, that person didn't get a say, and no one can decide what they wanted, and what we found was at the individual level, they know exactly what they want to do. And they just need more capital sometimes to do it. In a lot of these countries, Haiti, now when we work in Zambia, the markets are very buy, sell, almost on a daily basis. So a lot of these entrepreneurs and small business leaders, primarily female, they will buy and sell things like small foodstuffs, fruits, vegetables, school supplies, hair supplies, everything that they know there's a need for.
Sure.
Because there's not like Walmart.
Right.
So what we found was delivering, a cash loan, again, trying to be hand up, not a handout. We didn't want to just give people cash. We didn't want to give them grants to be like, okay, just do good things and hopefully this works. We really were stringent on the loan piece because we wanted to make sure there was accountability in there. Like, you have to pay back. We want to see growth. And so we just started that. And, for your audience that may have read this book by Muhammad Yunus, really just the genius who put this in motion of micro loans. He was from Bangladesh, and he really transformed an entire sector of people by kind of having this concept. So it's not like we were doing anything unique, just taking what had worked in places and really applying it in our context. And so just what happens is we working with our partners, working out systems of record, and delivering the loans to these people that otherwise wouldn't qualify for loans. That's the biggest thing. Whether it's they don't have identification or don't have collateral, don't have a track record of a bank. They get this cash infusion that allows them to buy the supplies that they need in the inventory, and sometimes the infrastructure, whether it's a market stall, a gas stove, something that will help them increase business. And ultimately, and this is why we do it, in this context, to feed our families.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And it's really the way of the future when you think about it, because when people are creating something for themselves, they have the ability to keep that going. And as long as they can just get that off the ground. What has been some of the reception from the recipients? Do you have any of them that stand out or resonate in your mind?
All of them have been just inspiring, and you just to see them get that, whether it's a stove or, now they've got the chicken coop that's running. Just to see them say, I can send my kid to school. It's really is touching. It's really touching. And that's what we do. We want to give hope.
Right.
And I think so much, especially running a nonprofit, sometimes focuses on, okay, well, we gotta get donors, deliver the money, make sure that this person is doing what they're supposed to. Check on that. Need the photo that you sometimes miss that. But when you step back and you hear and you see the smiles, you almost have to just wipe away some of the noise and realize this is for impact. And hopefully, now that COVID's ending, I hope, right? Unfortunately, in Zambia, it's actually increasing, but I really want to get back down there. And I know that that's where you'll truly feel it when you see those people firsthand. But we still get a lot of photos. We get to meet with them on Zoom.
Right.
That's been the fun part.
Oh, I bet. Being able to do the video. You said you've been doing video interviews and talking to people who have benefited from the program and some of your partners in the countries that you're assisting with. That must be incredible. And that is the power of social media. Like all you guys can watch us here today as well. It's because of the power of digital communications, which have become a lot better because of COVID, I believe. As a byproduct of this horrible pandemic was that we modernized a lot of the ways in which we communicate digitally. But how many times have you gone back to Haiti since that first visit?
Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, this is truly hard to believe, but I haven't been back.
That was your one trip. So you've done most of this remotely.
Yeah, and just for the audience and kind of be transparent, part of it was military service, being deployed overseas.
Sure.
And not deployed, I mean being relocated overseas to do a couple back-to-back tours. And then when I came back, I desired to go, but the conditions on the ground, the security situation, have not warranted the ability to come back, and as many people are seeing,
especially now.
It's tragic, and I really wanted to go in 2019. Just the opportunity presented itself just with military situation, life situation. I couldn't, and after that moment, we did a lot of soul searching as an organization, personally, and we made a hard decision to actually sort of find a stopping point, shall we say, in Haiti. Part of our entire history was there for a decade, and I think this is something that just to be transparent with the audience, how do we measure impact? How do we measure our life's work? For me, it's been almost a decade of working and trying to build back better for Haiti. And if anyone had read the news, on the 10th anniversary, it's still so just almost as if recovery was day two in so many ways. And it's a hard feeling. And I think in that way, it's not about, and not to be coy here, it's not about the end result, but about the journey. And I think for us, we definitely felt along the way that we had seen that impact. But at the 10-year mark, we just had to make a hard decision, especially with the security situation. So
Yeah, makes sense.
we gotta see where we can be more fruitful. And actually, beginning in 2020, right as the pandemic was coming on, we pivoted to Zambia, and that's our main work right now.
Gotcha. Is Ed now?
I've never been.
Right. Is working in there and working with the partners there been a lot different of an experience than working in Haiti, or has it been very similar?
A lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I can say, just because we also learned a lot from our experience in Haiti. In Haiti, like many places around the world that have a lot of aid, you begin to find partners that know how to sort of work in an aid environment. But when we went to Zambia, from the get-go, we set a precedent that we were working in an empowerment environment. And we actually found a partner that was more just a microloan implementer, business coach, that was more of an entrepreneur himself, versus, hey, I know how to get food distributions going, and I can work with the local leaders.
See.
So I wouldn't say it's completely different just culturally, but also how you come into partnerships matter. And that was also why I think it was important for us to kind of start fresh.
That really resonates with me about setting the table before you even start to work with someone or a partner, and what the expectations are getting out of it. And I think what you're doing, though, is you're also going through this journey as you're creating this nonprofit. I feel like it's evolving into where you guys want to drive it, and you're fine tuning, and that's all you're doing. I think that anybody who starts any endeavor is going to make mistakes in the beginning, and there's going to be some noise. But then I think as you go down that path and you get better at doing it, you start to just fully invest and involve into what it is that vision and your purpose and your impact is going to be. Did anything, now you and I became acquainted, I'm going to take you back to about 2000, I want to say it was in the middle of my move from, I think it was from San Diego to Virginia, and you had this really big, high impact event on social media. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Impactathon?
Impactathon. There we go. And I thought that was such an amazing experience, and that was so collaborative and very revolutionary. How did you get involved with that? And tell our audience a little bit about Impactathon. I had never heard of anything like that, and I thought it was a really neat way to educate about the nonprofit and bring people together.
Yeah, I think that was an evolution of several things in and of itself. One, and just kind of, personally, I love how the military journey intersects with a journey of impact, but it really begins in 2015 for me, when I was on the continent of Africa. I went down to Ghana to do another military operation. They were doing fisheries law enforcement stuff, and they needed someone to help with the media coordination. But the embassy PAO also, kind of a kindred spirit, has a heart for impact, and so it was doing what they call a hackathon with the local population, where they were essentially put everyone in a room and say, hey, build an idea that will change your country for better, using technology or whatever. And there's mentors kind of like talking with them. And so these kids, and I call them kids, I mean, they were, I think they were teenagers or early 20s, just kind of sitting at computers thinking of these, ideas to do something. And it could be like, solving problems like, hey, there's too much trash in my neighborhood, or hey, we don't have the ability to get medical supplies to my town, and coming up with technological solutions, dreaming big to get there. Now, would it have ever worked? That's not the point. It's the conceptual idea to do it. So out of that, I just always was like, that was cool. To see, and in that way, I was so used to at that point, okay, we're going to get some funds and deliver it. But this was a thinking thing. This was like, let's make impact by changing the mindset of the next generation. And so fast forward, just through some mutual connections, I met up with someone who runs a social enterprise called Innovate Social. And Impactathon is actually her baby. But I was like, how can we partner with you to bring this to life? And so we just started the collaborative effort, like you said, and she had done a lot at universities, just a kind of the same mindset of like, put people in a room, think about a problem, and develop it. And so we came to the table and we said, let's end poverty. Kind of a big challenge, right?
Right.
But we really framed it that way. It's probably too big a problem to say. And then through the journey, and this was right as COVID was really at the height of it, so we had to do it virtual. It was like, there's no other way to do it than virtual. And we just set kind of, it was really unique, and it was completely out of the scope of where we've been before.
Yeah.
But you're right, it was neat in that we had people from Kinshasa.
All over the world.
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah, you really did.
People from Zambia, we had people from India.
The most interesting people were on that broadcast, and people from just all walks of life and different varied experiences. And it was just really neat the way that it was organized. I was really impressed. If I hadn't been in the middle of my move, I would have been more involved, but I appreciated the opportunity to learn more about it. It's certainly an idea that stuck with me.
Yeah, it was definitely neat. And I think just to kind of take it forward, I think hopefully out of that, people did get to dream bigger about how they can solve poverty in their own communities.
Right, you just leave in a good headspace sometimes when you get an opportunity to think. We just did a call with the Navy communicators about work-life balance, and everybody shared some tips about how they balance work and life, and how they one guy said, I don't do anything on social media related to work. Somebody else said, I keep my dinner at time sacred, or I don't take calls after this time. And it was just amazing about ways in which people can share ideas in a kind of a free flow, open setting, and non-attribution, no recording. And it was really good. And I think it's important sometimes to bring people together just for that purpose, just for the sake of spitballing some ideas. And all of a sudden, oh my God, you have that idea, I have that idea too. And then you've made that connection with two people that probably would have never met otherwise, or had a chance to collaborate together. So I'm grateful that you took time to put together something like that. So now fast forward to today, what's Join the Journey up to at this time?
Yeah, I think that's a nice lead into kind of talking about our upcoming event.
Yes.
We're doing a benefit concert. We've got an amazing artist, Jason Gray, who his own story is really unique, where he has a speech impediment, a stutter, but he's overcome it to be just this incredible singer, and speaks from the heart. His new album, plugging it here for everyone, Order, Disorder, Reorder. And I think people like me, and there's so many probably people around the world that are like me, that have that same, go from brokenness, right? Disorder, order, or you actually start with order. And, life is great. Hey, we're moving.
Right.
We're gonna do this,
of course.
But then disorder, brokenness. And then how do we reorder? How do we come back from that to live a life that's full? And so he really has a neat way of inspiring that. And so he's going to come here being DC, but everyone can join live stream. But really what we're trying to do, we're calling it a Spark Hope Week. Just a unique way, kind of in that same vein of virtual, bringing together anyone who's helped be a coach, who just wants to kind of be a part of something for a week, something bigger than themselves. We've got some workshops, we're gonna have some fitness going on, all leading up to this event, and we're gonna have Zooms with Zambia. throughout the week, and really we just want to see this explosion. What we hope is an explosion of generosity, to the point where we can walk away from that week and we've got 100 new entrepreneurs that are funded, which for us at this point in the journey, we fund loans still, the loan process for $200 each, which in Zambia is 4,000 kwacha, close to the equivalent of. And so we're hoping that through this great week of again, celebrating connection and generosity, that we can walk away there and be like, hey, 100 more people are going to get a boost from their businesses, and their lives are going to be changed.
That's awesome. So I do have the link to it in the show notes. So please check out the show notes for more information. And then for those who are just listening audibly, what is the link to your website?
www.jtjourney.org. And then if you want to get the renewal tickets, it's www.jtjourney.org/renewal. And just one other note on that for the concert itself, we took some intentionality to call it renewal. I think it's fitting now. Partly we wanted to call it reorder, but it didn't have as good a resonance. It just didn't resonate.
Most people wouldn't understand reorder, but renewal people.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are feeling that right now, coming out of COVID. Still some uncertainty of what's going on with maybe a new variant going on here, but I think people are coming out of this moment and they've experienced hurt and they've experienced hardship. But I think there is a sense of renewal that, hey, we still have the rest of our lives ahead. In many ways, we've I don't want to say beaten the pandemic, but we've endured the pandemic. We've learned a lot about ourselves, about each other, and I think it's really a moment to seize of what does the renewal, what does the next chapter mean for all of us. And I think what we're trying to do is hopefully inspire everyone to sort of dig deeper and go farther to serve others.
Absolutely. And I think that the thing that really resonates with me is the fact that, COVID was something that was traumatizing for not just me and you, but for all of the world. There wasn't anybody that wasn't affected by this pandemic. And I think that this is a call to healing. And like you say, a call to renewal, to embrace and to celebrate our shared humanity. And I thank you for giving people a platform to renew themselves and to get that next jump on life, to better themselves and to aspire and to become something better than they are today. That's really important for people to have that. And I think that what you're doing with your nonprofit is outstanding and definitely making an impact and making a difference for people. So is there anything else that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to add?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I would say, for people that are wondering, what does that work-life balance look like for me? I do have 2 kids, 10 and 5, back when we were in that moment, like I said, in 2010, where I went on my own, clearly separated. We had our first child shortly after.
Wow.
And, I think for everyone that even impact isn't an end in itself. Even service isn't an end in itself. So, just keep finding where you're giving life. And I would say, make sure it doesn't become everything you are, because it can quickly eat you up if you're not careful.
Right.
And I think we need people and connections to take you out of that, to just love for a second, love your kids, love your wife, love your family, whether it's your mom, your sisters, your brother. There is importance in that as well. And so, but I'm blessed by the journey, still serving the military, and loving that. And wherever it all takes me, I'm just open to Open to the journey.
Along for the ride. And to your point, a lot of people ask, how do I get started and be of service? And I say being of service is sometimes just calling your best girlfriend and having a 20-minute conversation to find out what's wrong with her life and what she's going through. It doesn't have to be this grand thing of building a global nonprofit, or this gentleman who built a pool in his backyard for his neighbors, and now his neighbors come over every day. It can be as simple as a story I shared on LinkedIn, or earlier this week with an elderly lady who goes and visits, the neighbor next door on a routine basis. That's an act of service. So I think we all can be a vessel of service. And for all that you're doing, Adam, I thank you. I thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and do this in person. And hopefully we'll have some more of these in person for you guys. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Tune in next week. I'll have one more podcast. Then I'm going to go away for a little while. So maybe no more podcasts for a little bit. And then I will be back. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have an awesome night. Bye-bye now.